Hello everyone, welcome to Totally Rad Video Games, and this video is going to be, I guess, a follow-up to the previous video I made on the GameCube, which was just a video really talking about the system itself. This time we're going to focus purely on the games, and yeah, I heard that the GameCube is celebrating its 20-year anniversary this year. I suppose that gave me the impetus to kind of finally, make a video for this channel because it's been a little while now. So yeah, the games, I've got quite a few, but not necessarily a complete collection or anything like that. It's still a work in progress. I'm still working on acquiring more of these games. I haven't got every single one that I want, but I've got most of the games that I want, quite frankly. And I've got enough really where it's going to mean that I probably won't be able to talk in any great detail about these games because I'm just not going to have the time. This video is going to be too long if I try and do that. So I'm going to kind of go through these relatively quickly, and I've decided to break these games up into categories. And the first category is going to be the best of the best that the system has to offer, in my opinion. And we're going to start off with this Super Smash Brothers Melee or Melee, however you pronounce it. And this is, yeah, it's one of the best games on the system. There's no two ways about it. One of the most beloved games for the system, very popular. This game sold GameCube. People bought a GameCube just to play this because it was so you know popular and widely liked, and it was a good follow up to the N64 original. This isn't necessarily my favorite game or my favorite series or anything like that, but it is very good, and it is kind of see the appeal and everything like that. And this is definitely a highlight of the series. So yeah, well, definitely essential. So we'll move on now to Super Monkey Ball, which it just so happens to have two copies of. And yeah, I'm not just like an excessive collector or anything like that with two copies. I bought one copy at a charity shop. Found out that the disc when I got home didn't work properly. It just had this very slight scratch on it, and it just didn't work. And so I got a replacement copy, and it just happened to have kept it. So I've got two copies. But anyway, yeah, this is a really fun game for the series. For the GameCube, sorry, and many consider this the best game. This best Super Monkey Ball game. The original is the best. Yeah, but it gets very, very difficult later on. The challenge is really there, but there's some good gameplay before you kind of get to that. You kind of hit a brick wall with the difficulty with this game. It's probably one of the criticisms I have for it. But up to that point, it's great, and it's got some good multiplayer options. Some party games, and it's just a lot of fun. And the GameCube controller as well. It was perfect for this because apparently Nintendo put a lot of work into the analog stick and making it very accurate. It was way more accurate and sensitive, and just generally a better sort of analog stick than what you found on the equivalent of PS2 and the Xbox at the time. So yeah, it was really ideal for the GameCube for this series, and this is definitely well worth picking up. Not particularly hard to find. It's one of the more common GameCube games. I believe it was a launch title, so yeah, it's definitely essential. So move on now to Metroid Prime. Couldn't miss this one out. It is classic for the system, and yeah, probably arguably the best first-person shooter for the GameCube, particularly the exclusive game. Actually, I can't think of any first-person shooter that is better for the GameCube than this game. Really good, pretty easy to find, not hard. So, it's not rare or collectible or anything like that. So yeah, it's well worth picking up if you can find a copy of it. Next, we have Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. This one's a little bit harder to find, but it's more of the same, really. If you like the first Metroid Prime, you probably like this. I've completed the first Metroid, but I never got around to completing this one. I got about like three-quarters of the way in. Kind of gave up with it. I would like to revisit it and kind of finally beat it. But yeah, that's Metroid Prime Echoes, the hardest game of the series to pick up. Really, that's actually probably the hardest game of the series in terms of how difficult it is as well. So it's difficult to find and difficult to play, but besides that, it's well worth checking out. Move on now to this. This is a weird copy of Double Dash. For some reason, they put it in this. This is like a game exclusive. It's like a pre-order thing, and they put it in this kind of horrible grey box. But Double Dash is great. It's arguably, I consider the best really of. I haven't played the latest one to be honest, but I consider this to be the best. The Switch version of Mario Kart 8 is it? I haven't got around to playing that yet, but this is so far my favourite of the series. It's a lot of fun, and it's a little bit unfair in places, but it's very arcadey. And one of the things I like about it is you can really see your progression. If you practice hard, you can get better and better at it, and you can really, what was once difficult, what was once too challenging, becomes easier and easier as you practice, and it's very rewarding in that sense. So yeah, this is definitely a must-have game for the GameCube. Next we have Star Wars Rogue Leader. Not a particularly good copy of this, but it's a very common game, very cheap, a lot of fun. Great graphics for the time. Even today, this looks an impressive game. Just pretty common, easy to find. It's just a good Star Wars. Probably I'd go as far as me personally. I'd say it's probably the best Star Wars game ever made, in my opinion. I haven't played a great deal of them, but that's my favourite one. That's what I'm going to claim anyway. It's the best of the best I've played. So we'll move on now to Super Mario Sunshine. Obviously, it's a must-have game. It's a big Mario game for the system. It kind of goes without saying. The one thing I will say against this game, though, is I probably do prefer Mario 64. The generation behind Mario game, but still, great Mario game. Great game in general. Lots to do in it. Lots of quality. Can't really go wrong. Next, we have Luigi's Mansion. Launch game for the system, and yeah, it's a ghost busting Resident Evil. It's a children's Resident Evil game, effectively. Very heavily influenced. Well, not heavily influenced, but certainly influenced to a degree. The way you go through doors and things. Just like Resident Evil, you see the door and it opens and things like that. To cover up the loading screens and all that kind of thing. Because Nintendo at the time were working with Capcom, and I guess some of the influence rubbed off on Nintendo, and they came up with this. And yeah, it's a good game. The only thing about it is pretty damn short, but you complete it in about 4 or 5 hours, and quicker than that if you know what you're doing. So yeah, that's the only thing against it. Really, is pretty short, but it's still well worth playing. Certainly a classic of the system. So move on now to Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door. I believe this game is quite hard to get your hands on now. It's going for stupid prices, unfortunately. It's a game that could definitely do with being re-released, on the Switch and that type of thing. But many regard this as the best of the Paper Mario games, and it is very good. It's been a very long time since I played it. It feels like a very long time since I first played it. Anyway, I think back in, what was it, 2004 this came out, probably around the time I played it. I played it when it was new. And yeah, I just remember really enjoying it. It was a very good game, but unfortunately it's a bit pricey, so you might have to go down the emulation route unless you want to pay a stupid amount of money on eBay and that kind of thing, which is a bit of a shame. Like I said, it could do with being re-released, but we'll have to wait for that. I suppose Nintendo to pull the finger out. There's actually a few of these games where that's the case, unfortunately. We'll move on now to Pikmin. Great game. I played this for the first time this year. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, I even like the time thing about it, which is one of the things that people don't really like about it. You've got this time restraint on it. You've got to get everything done at a certain amount of time. A lot of people ahead didn't like that. I actually kind of liked that. I thought it was kept the game intense without it being frustrating and that kind of thing. But anyway, I generally really like this game. It's really good. I need to play the other ones now. The only thing against this game that exists for me, and it is a very minor thing, is that the last boss I felt was a little bit too difficult. I felt like they ramped the difficulty up just a little too much, and it was just like, I think because the game's pretty short, I guess they tried to make it difficult to kind of extend the life, and it felt a bit artificially extended and a bit too overly difficult. But that's just a minor issue. The game generally is really, really good. That's Pikmin. Next, we've got Resident Evil 4. This game has been re-released on many, many different systems, and this is a great game. It's one of my all-time favorite games. This might actually be my favorite GameCube game. Even it's definitely up there. It's definitely up there in the top three anyway. It's just fantastic. Never played Resident Evil 4. You need to play it. It's very intense. It's got some scary scenes, of course, in it. It's action packed. It's actually kind of funny in places. It's actually a little bit sad at the end, I feel. The end title sequence, which I won't ruin in case you haven't played it, although this game has been out for years and years now. But we played it. The end, sort of the title sequence is very sort of sad, and it kind of surprising, really. Something you don't often get in a game. Anyway, I won't talk about it in case I ruin it. But we'll move on now to Zelda. Wind Waker kind of goes without saying. It's a Zelda game. It's very good, and everything like that. This is the controversial sort of graphical, change in the design change in this with the cel shaded sort of cartoony graphics. I like this game. It's a lot of fun. It's a Zelda game. There's lots to enjoy, and this version's pretty good as well. It's 2 discs, and what's it got on the second disc? Got a Ocarina of Time and the Master Quest and all that. So yeah, this is a lot of content on this, and yeah, well worth checking out. Good, it's a Zelda game. Don't really need to go into more detail than that, really. I got this other one as well. This is the promotional collector's edition. It's got a Zelda, the NES one, the Zelda 2, the Adventure of the Link, which I really like. It's got Ocarina of Time, so you've got another Ocarina of Time, and you've got Majora's Mask. So it's 4 games on 1 disc. So yeah, this is pretty good promotional thing. It's pretty hard to get hold of now, I believe, and you can get these games pretty easily outside of this collection. So that'll be the way I'd kind of get these. This is just a nice thing to have, really. But I just thought I'd include it because it shows that other, keep the Zelda games together. I don't have Twilight Princess for the GameCube. That's pretty hard to get hold of. And it's not really worth it as far as I'm concerned. There's other versions that are a lot cheaper. I'd only really go for that unless you're a die-hard sort of Zelda fan, really. So I'll move on now to this, the final game I'm going to be showing in this sort of category. F-Zero GX, yeah, great. It's probably the best. It is the best F-Zero game. It's just fantastic. This is the latest F-Zero game that's been released. We haven't had another one on a home console at least since this came out, and it's fantastic. It's brutally difficult. Most people consider it one of the hardest games ever made. To try and do everything on this, I don't know how people do it. You've got to be supremely skilled to kind of get through this. The story mode, you only get so far in it, and then you hit a brick wall. And it's like, geez, how'd you get any further in this? But yeah, it's a very good. It looks great. It's super fast, and it's an essential game. I don't think it's too expensive either. It's pretty pricey, but it's not too bad. The game definitely could do with being re-released. Another one of those. And yeah, there's a few games that I would like to kind of add to my collection, but I kind of, maybe if there's time, I'll talk about them at the end. But we've still got another category to go. Actually, we've got a few more categories to go. We've got this category, which is going to be just the kind of recommended games, really. They're not necessarily the best of the best, but they're still pretty good. Maybe worth checking out if you can. This one is Chibi Robo, the first of the category, and yeah, I played this for the first time this year. I really enjoyed it. It's a good fun game. It's basically Metroid crossed with Toy Story, a third-person Metroid game, if you could imagine, such a thing, 3D one, and this is really fun. You go around cleaning up, which sounds a bit boring, but it's actually pretty fun. And you go on adventures and things like that in a suburban house, and it's actually surprisingly dark in places as well. The only problem with this game is the availability of it. It's probably one of the rarest games I own, not just for the GameCube, but generally. And it goes for stupid prices on eBay and that sort of thing, which is unfortunate. Definitely, it is probably the one GameCube game that I wish got like re-released. So more people could play it. Put it on the on the Switch and £10 a copy or whatever. Download copy and there where you go. But unfortunately, at this point in time, this game is pretty much inaccessible and unavailable. So the best way to play it, really, and the way I would recommend to play it, unfortunately, is the illegal way. Play a ROM of it, because if you can't play it legitimately, which you can't unless you want to pay hundreds of pounds, it's the only other option to go for, I'm afraid. So yeah, go the illegal routes. This is the unfortunate thing with games. Sometimes you just got to do it because there's no other way. If you really want to play it now, that's what you've got to do. So move on now to this. This is Killer 7. I wouldn't necessarily say this is a great game or anything like that. This is a game that I still kind of don't know how I feel about. It's very unusual. It's a very unusual game. The best way I could describe this is, imagine if Quentin Tarantino, he took a load of drugs and then decided he wanted to make a video game. That's kind of what you'd be left with. It's kind of very unusual. It's kind of very strange game. The way the game controls. It's kind of very stylized. It's very violent at times. And yeah, it's just an unusual game. It's a game that's well worth checking out, just to check her out, just to see if you like it. I'm kind of not going to be able to explain all the weirdness that this game has. It's very dark in places as well. It's just crazy, sort of mad game, really. And yeah, the GameCube version came out first. I believe it later came out on the PS2 and that sort of thing. So anyway, move on now to this Beautiful Joe again from Capcom. And yeah, this is a pretty good game. I do like this. It's a beat 'em up game. The only thing is, I don't love this game as much as a lot of other people do it. I find it does get a bit monotonous, and also find it gets very sort of it sort of overstays its welcome. It's a bit too long. A lot of these games are like Streets of Rage and Final Fight and those sorts of games are only like 40 minutes for a reason. That's because they kind of get boring beating the same thing, beating the same sort of enemies up over and over again. And this goes on for hours and hours, and I think it just outstays its welcome a little bit. But still a good game. The only other thing against it that I have is the difficulty. There's like two difficulty settings: there's kids and adult, which basically translates to hard for the kids and ridiculously too hard, and for the adult setting. And yeah, it's just a complete joke. I don't know how anyone has the patience really to get through it. Really, on the hard setting. But it's still a good game, and it's still worth playing through. But stay away from the hard setting definitely if you're gonna play it. Next, we've got Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. A good horror game. You play multiple characters in multiple time settings. This game's unique to it's unique in general. Really, it's a pretty out there game, but it's exclusive to the GameCube. You won't find it anywhere else. Again, needs to be re-released. I think more people deserve to play this game because it is pretty good. I think a lot of care and effort and love went into this game, but didn't really see the big audience that it kind of deserves. Really, it's not perfect. There is a few issues with it, but overall, yeah, kind of check this out. Bit of a cult classic, probably the biggest cult classic of the GameCube, really, along with Chibi Robo as well, I suppose. So move on now to this. This is WarioWare Incorporated, Mega Party Games, the collection. This is a load of party games, really good fun. Actually, the Game Boy Advance game, which came out before this, it shares a lot of the content with this. The only thing is with this game is that the Game Boy Advance version is actually way better than this. It's actually got more content to it. Usually, you think with the console version, they add all the stuff in and all that kind of thing. It's got more content to it, but it's actually got less content to it. So the Game Boy Advance version is actually the one I'd go for over this. The only benefit this has over the Game Boy Advance version is you can you can have multiple people playing at the same time. It's a multiplayer game. Besides that, the Game Boy Advance version is actually a much better game in general. But still good fun. Still great mini games and everything. Just weirdly not as good as the portable version, which is a bit strange. But anyway, move on now to this. This is just a racing game, R Racing from Namco. And one of the reasons I was interested in this, it's got a free sort of disc with it, a bonus disc. It's a Pac-Man Versus, which you connect up your Game Boy Advance, and you get this sort of weird multiplayer game where you got the one character looking at the screen of the Game Boy Advance, and you got the other player looking at the TV, and it's pretty fun. And the racing game's pretty good as well. Kind of impressive graphics and that kind of thing. Kind of really cheesy story mode and all that, and it's pretty good. This is worth picking up. Pretty cheap as well. So yeah, this is worth picking up. Particularly the Game Boy, not the Game Boy, the GameCube version. It's on other systems, but the GameCube version is good for the bonus disc. If you got a Game Boy Advance lying around and you like Pac-Man, worth checking out. So anyway, next we move on to Animal Crossing, the very first Animal Crossing game released outside of Japan. This is actually the Australian version. Because the weird thing with Animal Crossing is it's this big, huge franchise today. It's yeah, but at the time, Nintendo weren't too sure about it. They brought it out in Japan, and then they thought about releasing it outside of Japan, but never really sort of happened. It was slow, and anyway, it came out in Australia, and then we got an import copy. We got this, because it's PAL. Australia is the same region as Europe. We got this imported, and then eventually it came out actually like a year later or something like that, or so many months later as a as a European copy. And yeah, so it took a long time effectively for it to come out. So this wasn't, Animal Crossing was kind of a slow build in terms of its popularity, and Nintendo were kind of, not too sure of it, straight away. And it's kind of interesting the way it's this huge franchise to that today. Back then, back in the early days, in the early 2000s, with the, it came out, I believe, on the N64 originally, and then he ported it over to this, and they still weren't too sure, on the GameCube. But anyway, I don't want to get too rambly, but yeah, that's Animal Crossing. It's the only reason I won't rank that any higher really in the essentials or anything like that is because you get the modern day Animal Crossing games where you can do much more in them. But this has got its charm. If you're interested in checking it out, it's well worth doing. See where the series began really. So anyway, move on now to Resident Evil. This is the remake. Really great game. Don't really need to talk about Resident Evil that much. It's go around the mansion shooting zombies. Really love this game. This is like the ultimate version of the game. You can play on much more modern systems, in high definition and that kind of thing. Probably the best way of doing it. But if you're building up a GameCube collection and you like your horror, this is definitely well worth checking out. I actually really do like these games. Maybe personally, I'd rank these much higher, along with in the essentials. Really depends how much you like horror, I suppose. And this is Zero, the prequel. If you like Resident Evil, you'll like this. It's more of the same, and it's really damn good. It's been a long time since I played it, but yeah, really enjoyed it. And yeah, like I said, if you enjoyed the original Resident Evil, you like the prequel. So we're kind of getting there now. It's over 20 minutes, so I'll kind of speed up a little bit, and we'll take a look at some games in a category called crap GameCube games. And this is only one. I've only got one crappy GameCube game, and it's Die Hard Vendetta. This was released on multiple systems. It's not very good at all. It's a first-person shooter, and they overcomplicated it by adding platforming and other things to it. It just makes the game incredibly frustrating. There's a bit in this game which is just my idea of hell would be to replay this sequence again, where you've got to basically climb up this giant shelf with these forklift trucks, and you can fall so easily, and the controls aren't particularly that great. And then you get to the top, and then you got some platforming on these very narrow walkways, and it's just really freaking annoying. And it should have just been going around shooting bad guys and rescuing hostages and been a bit of arcadey fun. And they tried to be a bit too clever with it, and they made it what could have been an okay game into just a crap game. So yeah, stay away from this. Die Hard Vendetta. It's on other systems, but none of them are any good really. They're all as crap as each other really. The PS2 version, the Xbox version, I think it was off of the PC as well. They're all crap. So we'll move on now to some games in a category that I haven't played. Yeah, this is non-played games, so I don't really have much of an opinion of them. So I'm just going to kind of go through them quickly. Got a Pokemon Box, Ruby and Sapphire. I did actually have a Pokemon Sapphire on the Game Boy Advance. I think it was the first Pokemon game I really played for any real length of time. I have sold it, unfortunately. I may be able to buy that back. But Pokemon games just go stupid prices. They're really popular. They sell millions of copies, and then they go for like £50 a pop 5 years later. It's like, what's going on? They're so common. Why are they so expensive? Well, anyway, yeah, this is like you can play it on the TV and that sort of thing. Where if you haven't got a Game Boy player, I suppose you don't need it for this. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't played it, but yeah, that's something maybe I'll check out one day. Star Fox Assault. I got this recently. I haven't got the time to play it yet, but apparently it's pretty good. Some people have said it's a bit underrated. I've got a clue at this point. I need to check her out. Pikmin 2. I really enjoyed Pikmin 1. Apparently this is better, so yeah, I look forward to checking it out. WarioWare. Actually got 2 copies of this. It's a long story. I'm not going to go into why I've got 2 copies, but yeah, this is apparently a pretty good game. Pretty short, but I want to check her out. I do like Wario, so it's actually quite a hard game to find as well. So it's getting quite collectible. And I got this as well. This is another collectible one. Dash and the Giant. Played this for about 5 minutes. I need to give it more time. Got this recently. It's a pretty hard game to get for the GameCube, and it's again collectible and all that. And it's something I want to check out and give some devote some time to. Well, anyway, we'll move on now to the final category. Finally, we're getting there. I didn't realise I had so many GameCube games, to be honest. I thought I only had about 5 or 6. But anyway, next category is gimmicky. Gimmicky GameCube games. And we'll start off with this. It's Odama or Odama or whatever you pronounce it. I'm not too sure, but this game it's a bit of a mess, really. It comes with a microphone. Comes with this microphone, and you connect it up to the controller. And what you do is you basically order soldiers around. It's basically a strategy game set in ancient Japan. Order soldiers around, and which is it's kind of a fun thing to think about. It's a fun sort of concept. To be able to do that with your actual voice, and that actually works pretty well. The only thing is they decided to incorporate a strategy game into a pinball game. Yes, that's right, a strategy game and a pinball game. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't work at all because you're trying to be very precise with moving your soldiers around and your strategy that you're working out. And you're doing kind of quite well, moving everyone around and doing, working out a good strategy of how to, overcome the enemy. And then the big ball that rolls around and kills everyone in your team, and kills everyone in your army, and it completely screws you up. And it's this balance of being very careful with the randomness of pinball. This big stupid ball rolling around, killing everyone. It just doesn't work, unfortunately. But it's an interesting idea that just unfortunately doesn't work. It kind of needed more tinkering with, I guess. But whatever. It's a game that I find incredibly frustrating. I've never been able to really get any real hang of it. Or anyway, move on now to this. This is a Donkey Kong. Yeah, it's Donkey Kong's Jungle Beat. I might as well go through all 3 of these. It's got a Jungle Beat, which is my favourite of these games. And you got Donkey Konga, and you got Donkey Konga 2, and these come with these drums, and you bang the bongos, and you kind of it's like these 2 games are like a rhythm game, which is basically just rhythm party games, and this is a 2D platform, and it's actually really, really good. I really do like this game. I remember being really taken in by it. It's not particularly long or anything like that, but it's really fun. And yeah, I'd love to play this again. So that's that. Last but not least, probably the biggest, definitely the biggest in size. It's Dancing Stage Mario Mix. I had this game when it came out. I sold it like an idiot. If anyone's watching this video and they're young and they're collecting games and they're thinking of selling the collection off, don't. Just keep hold of them, honestly. You're sort of stabbing yourself in the back in a way. But yeah, I sold it and then I bought it back for a greatly increased price. So like I was saying, don't sell your games. Keep hold of them as long as you possibly can. We'll put this back, and it's a fun game. I'm not going to open it up because this video will be a million hours long. But yeah, it's got a dancing mat in it, and it's got a story mode, and it's fun. It's just a fun game, really. I'm not particularly the best dancer in the world. It's hard to believe I'm not a good dancer, I know, but I assure you I'm not. But anyway, that's it for this video. That's all the GameCube games I've got. There's a few more I want to get my hands on. I'll just quickly go through them. Geist, it's a first-person shooter game where you can sort of play as a ghost, and you sort of you can control other people, and you can control like item. Just apparently contains like a can or something, and just roll along the floor. It's kind of an interesting game. I would like to check it out. but apparently it's not that great, and it's getting kind of expensive as well. But I want to check her out, and there is. I should have wrote these down because I'm probably going to forget half of them, or indeed most of them. But I'd like to get Super Monkey Ball 2. That's one I definitely want to get my hands on. Got no real interest in getting Twilight Princess for the GameCube. Got that for the Wii. That's good enough. It's basically just the same game, only with motion controls. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Uh, there is there is actually a couple. There's a there's a game called Piano 3, which is like a Capcom game where you play this female character going around shooting robots, and apparently it's not that great, but it looks okay. And I might want to check that out. But to be honest, there's not a huge amount on the GameCube that I really want to get my hands on. There's stuff like Turok Evolution, which you hear it runs really well on the GameCube. Apparently, it's at 60 frames per second. First person shooter. I just want to check that out just to see how good it runs. Really, it's not a particularly rare game at all, but curious to check that out. But yeah, there's not a huge amount really. I've kind of gone through everything that I've got and everything that I kind of really want at the same time. So yeah, there's like a handful at best that I could maybe add, but not a great deal. There's stuff like Battalion Wars, which is quite hard to get your hands on, but isn't too bad. There's also a Mario football game, Mario soccer game, Strikers Charged Football or whatever it's called, and kind of curious to check that out. Uh, that's kind of it really. So yeah, that'll do for this video, I suppose. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you made it this long, you deserve a medal. Goodbye.